With Super Smash Bros. Ultimate lurking just around the corner, and the Wii U being dead as ever, it's likely that fans of the series will be desperately clawing for something to hold them over. Icon's Combat Arena tries really hard to fill that gap. Unfortunately, try and succeed are two very different words. I'm Colton for MMOHuts.com, and here's my first look at Icon's Combat Arena. Icons, as you may have gathered from the cold opening, is a Smash Bros. Style platform fighter that looks to capture the spirit of Super Smash Bros. Melee, a very old game that still sees competitive play today. Players pick from a small roster of characters, each with a normal and special attack button, and try to rack up damage on their opponents before hurling them off the stage. It's a relatively simple formula as fighters go, but the simple control scheme and mechanics allow for a lot of free expression in the way of combos being a lot more unique and mutable than in other fighting contemporaries like Street Fighter or the even more rigid combo fighters like Guilty Gear. Another part of the draw for games in this genre is the raw speed involved. Unlike most fighters, you're not forced to be facing your opponent at all times. Your movement is completely free and much faster as a result. Factor in advanced techniques like wave dashing, a technique where a player short hops and then downward dodges into the ground to slide a long distance, and fights can become tricky to follow. The sense of speed and fluidity is the first place where Icons tries and fails to replicate its predecessors. Everything in the game, from base character movement to the various attack animations of the characters themselves, felt sluggish when compared to games like Smash or even other more recent genre entries like Brawlout or Brawlhalla. In addition, all of the inputs are drowning in input lag. For the layman, input lag refers to the delay between when you push a button and when an action happens on screen. Imagine if you were playing Super Mario Bros., but every time you hit jump, you had to wait a quarter of a second for him to jump every time you hit the button. The game would take a lot of adjustment, and for those who are more sensitive to it, can make games endlessly frustrating. The problem for Icons doesn't stop there either. Hitboxes and collision are inconsistent with other platform fighters and actively work against the experience the developers are trying to create. A perfect way to demonstrate this is with a technique referred to as pivot grabbing. In Smash, pivot grabbing is a technique where a dashing character can grab in the direction opposite of where they're running to as a way to punish opponents who try to roll behind them. Icons handles player collision by allowing players to run through one another if no hitbox is out, but the way that it handles the non-collision causes any hitbox that are thrown out following a pivot to be eaten entirely. This severely hurts gameplay as using grabs to set up combos or kills is a common mechanic in platform fighters, but the problem here isn't exclusive to grabs. Attacks performed in this way will also be eaten, which will leave you open to a punish when an attack would have clearly landed in any other game in the genre. The final nail in the coffin for Icons is the atrocious netcode. When matches work, they work well enough, but more often than not a match will be consumed with lag that forces the characters on screen to a standstill before aggressively playing out all inputs both players have tried in hyper fast forward, creating awkward and random self-destructs for all parties involved. Fighting games are no stranger to questionable netcode. I know Capcom has put out their fair share of questionable netcode implementations, and it just sucks to see Icons struggle with this, given the slew of other problems the game already has on top of it. The game is in open early access, and honestly, it feels like it might be too soon. One thing Icons has going for it that I enjoy is the aesthetic, even if a few of the characters look like Overwatch OCs. The stages look nice, and the character designs themselves grew on me when I wasn't wanting to put my controller through my monitor following a particularly nasty lag pocket or dropped inputs. Despite this, a lot of the characters themselves don't feel too unique from a gameplay perspective. A handful of them are just carbon copies of Smash mainstays like Marth and Fox. When Icons does try to do something original, like create a full-on grappler in Zana, they succeed, and more of that should be encouraged. As it stands, I'm not the only one picking up on the myriad problems that Icons has. Throughout the hours I poured into the game for this first look, I began to notice a lot of the same names popping up. Before recording this voiceover, I went over to look at the Steam charts page for the game and saw exactly why. At present, the game only sees about 20 players a day, just 10 more than the PC version of Brawlout, which is dead. Icon's Combat Arena shows promise, but with Smash Ultimate only 3 months away, and mods like Project M and even the classic Melee still seeing a ton of play, it's unlikely that the game will be able to attract the following it needs, especially with the horrible shape the current iteration of the game is in. If you're dying for a Smash fix, try Brawlhalla or break out the GameCube for Melee instead. Well, that's all for today. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe and keep it locked on MMOHuts.com for all the latest gaming news and reviews.